So today I'm here with Rufus Thibodeaux. Did I get that
Yes,
name? Oh,
I'm
yeah, I got
impressed.
it. All
I'm
right.
impressed. Yes.
I'm so excited to have you. I was a guest for Rufus last week, and we had so much fun. And
Yes.
I learned about his background and thought, oh my gosh, I know you can provide a lot of amazing value to our guests. And so I wanted to exchange the favor and say, come on over here to Lighthouse, where we're building wealth together. I'd love to hear about how you came to be in real estate, what you're doing, and
Sure.
how you just created this massive, it looks like a huge, massive marketing company about around real estate. So
Yeah, yeah.
tell me more about that and tell me about you. Tell me more about
Sure. So it's kind of crazy. I'm normally the one asking the questions, so you'll have to pry the information out of me if I'm not giving you enough. Tell me. Um, I got my real estate license back in 1990. I don't have a real estate license now, but I did in 1990. And what's funny about that is that during that time, I'm going to really date myself. You had an option of computerized MLS, and also the books. But the books were the primary way that people got their information. So, I mean, we didn't even use computers, so it's crazy. And by the way, I was walking with my wife the other day. We were at the lake, and someone called me sir. Okay, I was kind of concerned about that. So we'll get back to that one. But so anyway, 1990, and at that time I was struggling, to get leads and deals, and I ran across a book called it's called Influence by Robert Cialdini. It's like one of my I've got a bunch of favorite books of all time, but this is certainly on that list. And basically, what he talks about is how to people make use these psychological, um, emotional, like what am I trying to say? Psychological hooks to make buying decisions. And so, like one of them is expensive equals good, and another one is if an expert says it, then it's true. So there's all these things that I learned about how people make buying decisions, and the book taught you how to get people to how to persuade them to make the decisions that you want them to make. And so it was very fascinating. So I came up with this idea for a letter that I was going to write, that I was going to use to generate a bunch of deals because I was tired of knocking on doors and cold calling and all that stuff. And so you stop me if I'm taking too long. Um, so
fascinating.
so I put together this letter. All my buddies laughed at me because real persuasion and real selling and real copywriting that gets people to respond, it doesn't look like traditional marketing. It's very, very different. And they thought it was crazy because it looked like something totally different than anything I had ever seen. It was, it was unprofessional. It was ugly. And so they discouraged me, but I put it out anyway. And I ended up generating like over 2,000 leads. I remember the number. It was 2178, 2,178 leads. And I closed a bunch of deals and made $673,000. That was in 1990, like 4 or 5. Over that year, it was crazy. So it was a lot of money, and it felt like a lot of money. And so, of course, they weren't laughing at me anymore. And that was the start of me, having an interest in advertising and marketing and copywriting. I didn't even know what that term meant. But I started learning about it, and it's just the idea of putting words on paper that persuades people to take action. So I started learning that, and ended up helping other people. They started hiring me to do work for them, and made a bunch of money, and ended up generating like about $350 million in sales it's probably over the last 29 years, so a long time, but that's a lot of money. And but what I decided to do, I started to, my passions are marketing and advertising and real estate. And so I started finding out that real estate investors, they just they have a really short lifespan. I mean, if you Google the term real estate investor failure rate, you'll see that the 95% of real estate investors fail. That's a big number. And when I say that to people, they think, that you're just making that up. And they look it up, and you'll see it. Boom. That's one of the first things, piece of information that will come up when you Google that. But anyway, and so I got tired of seeing so many real estate investors fail, and so I wanted to help. And one of the primary reasons why they fail is because of the marketing. They're using marketing that doesn't work. I call it they're like sheep that are like following the crowd to their death, and they don't even realize it. So I committed all my time and energy to helping real estate investors, and so that's what I do now. That's where I'm focused 100%. So I started a podcast where I'm talking to people like yourself who are in the top 5% of successful real estate investors, because I feel like success leaves clues. And so rather than reinvent the wheel, I want to talk to somebody who's already succeeding, find out what they did, and then share that, that with the rest of the real estate investment community. And then I started a private Facebook group where I'm sharing, short training videos, ideas and tips about how you can generate more leads and deals. And I've got a what I call a mini email newsletter that I send out once a week with kind of a tip of the week. And so I do all of this stuff to try to add value, and to try to help to lower that 95% failure rate. And so kind of one podcast episode, one post, at a time. So that's me in a nutshell.
Wow, there was so much in that.
Yeah,
You're blowing me away, first of all, with the 95% failure rate.
it's
You know,
crazy.
by the same token, on the opposite side, you see
Yeah,
that there are more millionaires created through real estate, right?
absolutely. Yeah. There are.
So, so is that to say just the 5% are all the millionaires?
Yeah, what's funny about that? I don't remember the exact statistic, but it's like 5% of the population owns 95% of the wealth.
Wow.
So yes. So there's a couple of statistics that I think about that's kind of crazy. So that's one. The other one is this: if you are in an industry, you don't know which way to go, what should I do, what strategy should I use? You look around and see what everybody else is doing, and you do the opposite,
Yeah.
because most people are wrong. It's crazy. That sounds outlandish, but that's the way that it is. And so yeah, so there's only a very, very small percentage of people that are making the money. That's just, it's the 80-20. I mean, the 90-10. That's
Yeah.
just the way it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, congratulations to you for figuring it out and how
Thank
to
you.
market appropriately, because I'll tell you what, that's one of the most difficult things for us in real estate
Yeah,
is to figure out, okay, how do I market and how much is too much? How much is enough?
that's right.
And just trying to find that balance there. And
Yeah.
I can tell you that that's something I struggle with today is, I want to educate my population, but then
Yeah.
by the same token, I don't want to come across as vomiting all my knowledge on them
Oh,
either. And
sure.
so it really is a fine line there of what does your audience even want to hear?
Yeah.
I love your tip of the day. I think that's great. And I certainly don't want to give your trade secrets away because you've
Yeah.
obviously worked really hard, but you said something really important that success leaves clues.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let me ask you, how did you figure that out? I mean, did you have a
Yeah.
mentor along the way? Did
Sure.
you? Yeah. So tell me more.
Yeah. I've had lots of mentors. I mean, I read a book. Well, there's a guy by the name of Brian Tracy. And
Brian, great.
yeah, I love him, and he's older now. It's kind of funny to see him
Yeah.
so old now, but he said that if you read an hour a day, that equates to one book a week, so 50 books a year. Okay, and the average person only reads one book a year.
Mhm.
So you read 50 books a year, and if you read on one specific topic for 3 years, you'll become an expert on that topic. If you do it for 5 years, you become an international expert. So I took that to heart. So I started to read about things that I was interested in, and so and that was marketing and sales and that kind of thing, and real estate. And so my mentors were people that I learned from. And so I started when I got my license. I got my license. I was 20 years old, and I didn't know anything. In fact, I was so young that people. Well, long story short, I ended up, because of the job that I had, I was selling houses for a nonprofit real estate development company. They
Mhm.
fixed old homes, renovated them, and sold them to first-time home buyers. And I had to get a real estate license to do that. So for the first couple of years, I worked for their company and learned the ropes. And then I went out on my own, and I became a broker without really even being. I really didn't have any street knowledge. I mean, I kind of just was out there. So I made a lot of mistakes. So most of what I learned was just because I made huge mistakes, and I wasn't scared to start over again, and get out there, and mix it up. One of my favorite movies is Rocky. Get out there and get busted
Yeah.
up, and get
Yeah.
right back in there. So I learned a lot of mistakes, but some of my biggest mentors were my dad, My grandfather was an entrepreneur. My dad was an entrepreneur. But I got to say, one of my biggest mentors is my wife. I learned so much from her. I married up. Now, when you see her, you'll say, "What in the world? How did you get her?" And I say, "Hey, you know what? I mean, that's just kind of how it is." So, but yeah, so I learned from people, and I never really hired coaches that often. But I read a lot of books, lots of books, and made a lot of mistakes, and yeah, that's how I learned. And so I learned early on, and then I was young enough to recover from them and move on. But they're valuable lessons. And so I got to the point where I wasn't scared to make a mistake because I knew that all that was going to happen is I was going to get better and I was going to learn how to, how to recover from that and get better and then make the best decisions you can with the information you have. Then you get new information, make better decisions, and so that kind of is the cycle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's it. I don't know if that answered the question. I was a little bit all
Yeah.
over the place. Yeah,
No,
but
no, absolutely. Early on, I didn't have anybody in this space. I mean, I kind of lucked into real estate. I had a girlfriend invite me to a conference
yeah,
and my eyes were just completely opened. And I
sure,
thought, who do I know is in this space? And then I thought of the one person I knew. And so I just decided, I'm going to copy him. I'm just going to follow. He's having success. I'm just going to
yeah,
follow what he's doing. And
yeah,
sure enough, it paved the path for me. And then I've
that's
hired
right.
some mentors along the road.
Yeah,
But you're right. Success does leave clues, and you're going
yeah,
to pay for your mistakes either
you
by paying
do.
a mentor or you're going to fall down and you're going to make
Absolutely.
them financially, right?
Oh, totally. Now, I mentioned one other thing about the success leaving clues. That was what I learned. That was the biggest lesson I learned in marketing and advertising is grabbing advertisements and strategies that have worked, that have been successful outside of the real estate industry and pulling them in my industry.
Okay.
Because now they're unique, they're different, but they still work because human nature is human nature. So in other words, strategies change, particularly in the internet marketing space. Things change all the time. I mean, it's something new that happens all the time. You can't count on that. But the one thing that you can count on is the fact that people are going to always move toward pleasure and away from pain. So if you can understand what drives them, I mean that's the whole key to successful marketing and advertising. And so, but I would study things that already worked and just apply them in my own business. So anyway, that's another. So that success leaves clues. They're everywhere. Those clues are everywhere.
Wow. It's brilliant. Did you have to study this mental psyche of people? Is that part of advertising and marketing is
Absolutely.
understanding what causes pain and what people are running from?
Yeah, yeah. But you know what? Yes, I did have to study that. But it's simple though. When you think about it, I mean, it can be very complex. But I mean, if you I mean, it's like if you chase after people, they're gonna run away from you. Okay. But if you say, "Hey, come here, I got something," you know what? I'm not gonna tell you. I'll tell you later. Now I go, "Hey, wait a minute. Wait, no, tell me." So you draw them in, and that's how con men work.
Yeah.
They draw people in, they play on people's greed, they play on their emotions, their hot buttons. And so you just have to do it for a good and not evil. But yeah, so I did spend some time learning that. And it's amazing. One of my favorite things to do would be there's a state fair in Minnesota. We haven't had, well, because of COVID and stuff, they're having it now. I would love to go to the guy who sold the mixer, the dicer chopper things,
Yeah.
and he'd be on his microphone. He's talking, say, "Hey, who will give me five? Who?" I mean, and he plays on people's emotions and he hits their emotional hot buttons. And the best salespeople, they do it unconsciously. They're not. I mean, it just happens, and they're just they're overcoming the objections and they're convinced. And if and before you know it, I mean, it's like um, I'd be watching an infomercial. And I love watching infomercials. And I'm flipping through the channel, all of a sudden I stop and say, "Hey, what's this about?" And I'm kind of looking. Next thing you know, I'm pulling out my credit card. So it's like, how does that work? So I wanted to know how to do that because that's a skill. That's not something that
Yeah.
happens by accident. And so anyway, yeah. So I think most people probably don't have the love for it that I do. But I think that if you just understand that if you can't make people are only going to want what they want. You just have to figure out how to help them to get what they want, how to show them that what you offer is going to get them what they want, because it's all about them. And as long as you remember that, I think that's one of the main keys.
Mm, that's brilliant. Love
Yeah.
that. And it's so simple, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me, let's go to real estate. And
Yeah.
what are you doing in real estate these days besides
Um,
marketing,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, sure. I do a lot of creative deals. That kind of is my bent. So a lot of owner financing deals, subject to, um, yeah, but mostly that kind of stuff. I do, and I'm doing more. I want to get into more bigger deals and more multifamily stuff. That's why I was so interested in what you had to say. But yeah, I mostly do those kinds of deals, and I just look for problems. That people, I because I feel like we don't buy real estate as much as we're solving problems. So if you look for the problem, you'll find the real estate attached to it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that's what I'm doing. A lot of creative deals, a lot of owner financing stuff.
So I think back in the day,
Yeah,
when interest rates were 13%, 7 to 13%,
yeah,
seller financing made a whole lot of sense.
yeah,
But in the last 4 to 5 years, when interest rates have been at historical lows, seller
yeah,
financing hasn't really been a thing.
yeah,
So, I came in when interest rates were starting to decline, and
sure.
it's not a skill set that I ever learned.
Yeah,
But I think now the interest rates are going up, seller financing, I'm starting to hear that term a little more and more
yeah,
often.
yeah,
So let me ask you, just can you set us up and show us
yeah,
kind of what that looks like? How would you present say that I have a property for sale, it's $1 million
yeah,
and you want to buy it.
yeah.
How do you position that to where it's good for me and it's good for you too?
Sure, sure. First of all, it has to be a situation where selling that house, that you're in a situation where you've got to sell the house in order to solve or prevent a problem. Because if you're not in that situation, it's not going to work.
Okay.
So let's say that you got a promotion someplace, you were moving actually, and you bought another house out there, wherever you're at, thought this house was going to sell, but it didn't. So my question to you is, I want to find out what you're looking to do. I mean, are you looking, so do you have equity? Do you not have equity? What's most important, to get the mortgage paid off or just to get rid of the payment? Because you may say, well, you know what, I can't handle two payments. I got to
Right.
get rid of this
Right.
other payment. So then we just work out a deal, that I maybe take over that payment, and I say, hey, listen, how about if I take over that payment, and if I cover I maybe rent the house from you for a couple of years and then buy it, cash you out in maybe a year or two, would you be open to something like that? Or, how about if you allow me to rent it and then buy it in a couple of years, I'll handle all the maintenance and repairs
Okay.
for, over that period of time. But none of that works unless you're in pain. So I can't just knock on your door and say, hey, listen, can I take over your payment? Hey, can I? And so the other thing is that seller financing to me is a generic term like Kleenex. So
Oh,
in other words, people think, hey, seller financing. Oh, you must be talking about a contract for deed. Oh, you must be talking about. But to me, it's any opportunity to buy a property. I would call it on layaway. So in other words, I buy now but pay later or pay over time. And
mhm.
so again, if your primary concern is that you've got two payments of $2,000 each, and you may say, hey, I can't keep making that. All you want is to get rid of the payment. Well, now we have something to talk about. Or even if you have a ton of equity, but you don't need all the cash right away, we got something to talk about. And you say, hey, listen, yeah, I want to sell it, but I don't need the money right now. I said, well, yeah, do you need it now, or can I pay it over time? Yeah, sure. I pay it over time. And, particularly if they're older and they've got a bunch of equity, they may want to have a monthly income stream. So you just have to think a little bit outside of the box and not be stuck on one particular strategy. I think you have to sort of just be thinking, I want to find out if there's a problem, and then I want to find out how we can solve it. And we don't, it doesn't matter what we call it. Like I said, seller financing to me is, maybe it's a subject buying subject to, maybe they've got no loan and they're holding a note that I'm paying them, or maybe we sell that note and they get some cash. And so it's a lot of different things you can do. And I think you just have to have an open mind about the fact that we're solving a problem. It's not so much creating owner financing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
it's a little bit different mindset. So that's sort of, we would have a conversation about that.
So you're really you're really the problem solver for this
Yeah,
seller. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So it comes down to asking really good questions.
Yeah, it does. And I think you also should have a pretty good understanding of a few different options that you can use, And I think it's just I usually put them in a few different boxes. I mean, either I'm going to take over the payment, or maybe I'm going to rent it for a while and then take over, then buy it at a certain time. Maybe I'm going to do either one of those things and set it up so I can sell that note to someone else. I may not want to hang on to it. Maybe I want to be between the buyer and the seller, create some cash flow. So um, it's like cooking, and you understand that, hey, you know what, I can use this seasoning, but if I don't have that seasoning, this might work instead, because the end result is what you're trying to focus on. The end result is I remember a deal. Can I tell you a story about a property that I owned real quick?
Please, of
Okay.
course.
So when I was early in real estate, this is when I was broke and trying to get going. I had gotten behind on my payments, and that's when I learned that banks don't lend you money when you need it. They lend it, when you don't need it. So it's like, hey, I got 900 credit score. They're like, hey, here, you want to buy it? Here's a loan. I'll take this, credit. But if you need it, it's like, hey, my house is behind. Can I get a loan? Well, no, you can't get a loan then. So I learned also that the definition of a refinance, I reframed that, because again, like you were saying, owner financing, and I know when people say owner financing, they're typically thinking contract for deed, or something like that. Well, I realized that, because I couldn't refinance the traditional way, but I realized that owner financing was really getting a new loan to pay off the old loan. So, but I didn't have to be the one to get the new loan because I couldn't qualify for it. So what I did is I structured a deal so that someone else got the loan. I basically sold them my equity with the
Mhm.
right to be able to buy it back at a later date. So I was able to get my loan paid off, get my house back, paid them off in a couple of years. So the way that it was structured was completely different. So to the rest of the world, I refinanced my house,
Yeah.
but I knew that I couldn't do it the traditional way. So that's how I learned alternative ways to be able to. Because again, if the end result is I want to get a new loan to pay off my old loan, oh, you want to get a refinance? Well, I can't. No, I can't. They're not going to lend me the money, so I just got to do this. So it's like I want to get the sum of four. So how many ways can I come up? What do I need to get the sum of four? Well, you can do 2 + 2. Well, sure. But what else can you do? Well, you can do 10 minus 6, and I mean, so there's all different ways
Right.
that you can. So it's like, what do you want to achieve, and figure out all the ways that you can, what you can do to
Yeah.
achieve that goal. And I think that makes you a great, I mean, that's what entrepreneurs do. I mean, I think that they're solving problems, figuring out how to do that. And so it's not so much, again, about calling it a particular type of strategy. It's just about the mindset of solving a problem. I'm a problem solver, and so I want to get a solution for this. And so that's kind of my thought behind it.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Um, I think this fall, we're going to see a lot of opportunities where people
Yeah,
can be creative,
I
with
think so. Sure.
interest rates going up.
Yeah.
Um, so what do you think this next year holds for you? Are you going to be in the buying mode? Are you going to, I mean, do you look
Yeah.
at next season of, real estate as a buying opportunity, or do you look at it as I'm going to hold my cash under the mattress and just
Yeah.
put her down for a little bit?
Sure. I'm always buying, because I think that you have to constantly be moving. I mean, because I think that the idea of saving money. I mean, I mean, like Robert Kiyosaki, he's another one of my favorite authors. I mean, so the thought process that a $1 million, $1 billion entrepreneur has is completely different. And so you have to. So there's no good market, bad markets. There's just opportunity. I mean, there's just as much opportunity in a quote bad market as there is in a good market. You just have to know what to look for. And so
Right.
again, if you're looking for a for sale sign, I remember someone told me that if you're buying houses with a for sale sign in front of it, the money's already been made. It's already been made. And so you have to create the opportunity. You're not looking for the opportunity, you create it. And that's a completely different mindset. So I'm always buying. I'm always looking to buy, and I'm always looking to do deals, and I'm always looking to create win-win opportunities for people. And that's how I'm able to put together a deal, because I'm helping people. I'm not, it's a win-win. It's not just me trying to steal their equity. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
yeah, completely
No,
different thought process.
that's so great. I
Yeah.
love you say you're trying to create a win-win for both. You know, that you want everybody to feel good when they leave it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Because you don't want to burn that bridge, because now you have an opportunity maybe to come back again, you know? So
Sure.
yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, you provided so many nuggets. I know people are going to flood your inbox
Oh, I
because
hope so.
they're going to want to take advantage of all your marketing nuggets that you said that you have, that you've learned over the course of your experience here in real estate. And then
Yeah.
also how to do creative financing. That is a really big misnomer out there that a lot of
Sure.
people have the expertise in. So
Yeah.
how can people find you? What's the best way to
Yeah.
connect with you?
You know, the best way probably is my website, the reimarketingguy.com, or I'm on Facebook. You can go to find Rufus Thibodeaux on Facebook. I would say those are probably the ways, but through my website, you can get to all of that through that. So my number, you can call me, text me, 612-483-4982. My wife would probably say, why are you giving your number out like that? My wife just, but wives are that way, I'm sure, it's like, hey, honey, don't do that,
Right.
So, but anyway, yeah, that's probably the best way. I'm a big texting person. I'm on my phone all the time.
I
So
love it.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, when you're doing what you love, it's never
yeah,
work,
I
right?
agree. I
Yeah.
agree. I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah.
Well, I am so blessed to know you,
Well,
and I
thank you.
cannot wait to flood your inbox with my own questions.
Well, thank you. I look forward to that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I look forward to continuing our conversation
Yes,
and growing right along with you.
absolutely. We haven't even talked about the big deals. I want to learn how to put together those big deals and raise money and all that stuff. So we have to talk again for sure.
We do. Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
thank you for your time this evening, and I will circle back to you and have you on another time.
Sounds good. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Sure.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.